There have been some huge changes in American grassroots drifting in the last 2 years. It's been a pretty wild ride with COVID and some tracks disappearing and new tracks coming onto the scene. It's been a little different. The grassroots drift events have traditionally ranged from beginner entry-level competitions to matsuris and festivals that are open to everyone. However, with the start of the COVID pandemic, that's when things really seemed to change with grassroots drifting in the USA. There have been so many crazy variations in driver and spectator counts depending on where you lived in the USA and the different lockdowns they had. Some drift organizations completely dried up and disappeared, while new ones came onto the scene. Now, one of the most notable new drift organizations is Klutch Kickers, which up until this year, 2021, they're based out of the Emerald Coast Dragway where they built the Drifter's Paradise track, but in 2022, they are now moving to Cletus McFarland's Freedom Factory. I've got a video talking about some of the changes or some of the expected changes with that, so click on the thing there that's gonna pop up if you wanna get into some of that. Now, while Klutch Kickers isn't exactly what I would consider grassroots, they have risen quickly with their 100K series, bringing in all levels of drivers, from grassroots heroes all the way to pro Formula D drivers, as well as all kinds of crazy international social media stars. When I was there, they had some guys that came from Brazil, and somebody messaged one of the judges because they got tagged in one of their posts and said, "Hey, what's your number? If I call you, can I talk to them? Can you put them on the phone?" This type of event, these huge cash payouts that bring in drivers from all over, I believe is completely transforming grassroots drifting. Before I go further into this, I think it's important to understand what I consider a grassroots drift event, or more specifically a grassroots drift competition when compared to a professional drift competition. So the only professional drift sanctioning body in the USA right now is Formula Drift, right? In the past, there was also D1GP, but they're no longer in the USA, although they still operate in other countries like Japan. As far as grassroots, this term is normally associated with startups or locally owned and operated and small-scale operations. Now with motorsports, it may get a little more specific and weird because there are large organizations like NASA and SCCA that are ran by local NASA and SCCA leaders, so while they're locally ran, they're not exactly grassroots because they're a large sanctioning body. So what about drifting? Now, I usually define grassroots drift events or organizations as ones who cater to non-professional drivers. This means their normal driver group is entry level all the way up to, say, an amateur level, like those who compete at, or who might compete at, like Formula Drift Pro-Am. Or the crossover between grassroots and professional happens at the Formula D Pro-Am level, as these are amateur drivers who compete in what are arguably professional cars, although mostly self-funded and built, for a chance to receive a Formula D Pro or Pro Spec license. They're on their way to becoming a professional, and they're starting that competition to get there. I venture to say that one of the only true grassroots drift competition series is, as I've defined it, is NB Drift. An NB Drift Grassroots Drift series. Not only is it in the title, but they've always encouraged their drivers to move on to a higher level and graduate from their competition to that next level. At one point, they were even a D1GP feeder series for D1GP USA. And there have been some variations of their rule book over the years to really encourage this graduation. Sometimes it was just as simple as running a limited tire size like a 225, or other times it goes on to outright ban cars that have won the NB Drift Series in the past. Currently, the way that it works is they restrict tire size to a 245 width, and anyone who has a current Pro Spec or Pro Formula D license is ineligible to compete, although they may receive a discount on entry fees, but those with expired licenses can petition to enter the competition. And I think the idea behind this is to try and get like a level playing field. You know, in the past, I guess they'd had Pro 2 drivers come and like mop up the entire competition. and win everything, and these entry level, these guys that are working on building their skills just got knocked out really early, didn't get a chance to really build their skills in that competition format. But that's kind of beside the point. Where does that leave Klutch Kickers? Because they kind of break all the rules. As far as I'm aware, they've never advertised that they're a grassroots series or a grassroots organization. They definitely aren't a large-scale professional sanctioning body like Formula D because they don't have any licensing requirements, there's no real driver requirements, and there are very minimal vehicle restrictions or requirements, which keeps this competition fairly open. I would say that they're like a cross between professional and grassroots. They are another one of those areas where there's a crossover between, except I feel like it is more of a crossover, like blended area instead of a strict, here's your grassroots and here's your professional. I would say they kind of fall into their own class. I'm gonna call them like open drift competitions, as they're open to everybody and pretty much every car. Now, this type of open drift series is spreading. Riverside Drift, who's based out of Salem, Indiana, they started to follow a similar model. They're hosting 3 10K drift competitions in 2022, as well as multiple Matsuris or festivals. And the competition buzz is spreading to other organizations like Drift Payouts, while others have been running, a street series like Drift India and Lone Star and these other places that have been doing that street series for a long time. I'm seeing more and more of these grassroots organizations, these grassroots drivers asking the organization, hey, when are we doing a competition? I want to compete to win something. In the south or southeast of the USA, large payout events like Klutch Kickers and Riverside are pretty common in other motorsports like drag racing and circle track. Before Klutch Kickers, before Riverside, before like social media influencers that make money doing things, the only way that you could really make money at drifting was through Formula Drift. You really didn't have any other ways, any other platforms to do that. And because of this, this lent itself to drifting primarily being about the drift community and about having fun. And if you weren't having fun, or if a drift organization took away from the ability to have fun and cause, say, drama or something like that, the drift community fought back against it. I mean, for example, even look right now like Spirit JP or Spirit Motorsports Academy. What's happening right now on social media with them is pretty crazy. They hurt the community, and now they're facing the backlash of the community. Some people are calling for justice on social media by boycotting their events and all kinds of other crazy stuff and threatening legal action, which really isn't that crazy considering some of the stuff that's happened or that's alleged to happen. But with there being this pretty strong push towards these large cash payout events, it makes me wonder, how will the community change? Will there be more drama at events, like fist fights? More people getting really upset at each other, yelling at each other, screaming and cussing at judges and staff. With the large sums of money on the line, are there going to be more of this, hey, you can't see under my hood, you can't see under my car, I can't talk to you about my setup because it's all secret, because people want to bring home that money. They're about the win versus about having fun. These are things that haven't really been an issue in the past, but are extremely common in other motorsports that do these large cash payouts. I can't even begin to tell you how many people that I've had come out to drift events, and when they see all of the cars in the pits with their hoods up, other people from other teams or whatever coming and helping each other fix their cars, they're like, man, this is crazy. You wouldn't see that in drifting, you wouldn't see that in drag racing, you wouldn't see that in circle track, you wouldn't see that in road racing. Like it was pretty wild for them to try and wrap their head around, which is one of the things that brought me to drifting from the road racing kind of grip community. So what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? I'm curious to see if you think I'm spot on and that this might be something that we might see change in the drift community, or if I'm way off base. I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are, so put it in the comments below. And while I think that some things may change, I think only time will tell how much change there really is. I'm just excited that as a grassroots driver, I get the opportunity to drive with some pros at events like Klutch Kickers and Riverside, as well as that there's still drift competitions that are true grassroots, catered to helping people build the skills they need to grow in competition to get to that next level.